Hey friends, holy crap, does it feel good to be back. The last episode we released wasn't actually planned to be the last episode before I left for surgery, so there wasn't any kind of announcement of our hiatus, so sorry. But I am back from surgery, feeling mostly recovered enough to do this thing. This episode and the episode that you're going to hear next week is actually going to be the fundraiser that we did a few weeks ago for Foundation Beyond Belief's Hurricane Harvey recovery efforts. It's 4 hours long, so I decided to split it into two parts. We had some new patrons sign up while we were on break, and I want to thank those folks real quick. Thanks to the Real Life Beyond Faith podcast, Lee, Marius, Cool Unicorn, The Real Tim from Holland, Torsten, and Casey. I normally like to do like a funny thank you where we talk about how that money's being used to fund the gay agenda and, we all have a laugh and stuff. This time around, though, I think it's just important to point out that the $200 that the show gave to Foundation Beyond Belief a few weeks ago came from the money raised by our patrons. So thank you for being a part of helping these folks out. I should also point out that though the official Gay Theist Manifesto fundraiser is done, Foundation Beyond Belief is still raising money. So if you missed the original broadcast, you can still help out by contributing at FBBGive.org. That's FBB as in Foundation Beyond Belief, give.org. There's always work to do, and you can still help us do it. Aside from being a fundraiser broadcast, I think there are some really great and important conversations that happen in the different segments of this broadcast, which is why I'm releasing them in the podcast feed. I hope you find them as valuable and energizing as I did. Love you, friends, and unless something drastic changes, we'll be back to our regular release schedule after this episode and part 2 of the broadcast next week. Take care, friends. Love you lots. Your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement. This is the Gay Theist Manifesto. Hello and welcome to the Gay Theist Manifesto. I am your host, Callie Wright, joined once again by my fabulous co-host, Ari Stillman. What's up, Ari?
Girl, we've been gone for a while.
We have been gone for a while, and I am super excited to be back. A little earlier than we planned, but I'm good with that. I'm good with that because it's for a good reason.
She texted me on Friday and like, hey, what if we do this gigantic event that I just came up with? And now here we are. 2 days later with all these guests.
I like to say that I'm not somebody who does things halfway. Like when I jump into something, I kind of jump into something. And I've actually had like the episode that I wanted to do when we come back. I've had that planned for a while, and I was just kind of waiting, wait until I feel better for us to do it. So obviously we've kind of just been in a holding pattern since my surgery on July 31st, just to kind of see when I feel up to it again. And then this goddamn hurricane happened. As we all know, right. And as we all know, when it comes to natural disasters, God gets all the credit, none of the blame, and all of the relief effort seems to be faith-based. And, it all comes with proselytizing and Bibles and all of that. And, I'm a fan of helping people, whether it's churches doing it or whatever. But we know that a lot of times that help comes with baggage of being proselytized to and hearing about God, and that's something that I'm not okay with. And for this reason, Foundation Beyond Belief is an organization that's super close to my heart. It's one of my favorite charities. I love the people involved. So I reached out to Noelle, who is the executive director, and to see if they had anything going where we were going to try to help folks out. And they do, because they have a Humanist disaster relief program, and they're actively raising funds to help with the hurricane relief effort. And not only that, Noelle is actually shoring up her home against storm damage too, depending on how the storm ends up tracking. So I did what podcasters do, decided to reach out to some friends, see what we could do to signal boost their fund drive. So we're going to be live for 4 hours tonight with some folks hanging out, talking about current events, activism, whatever comes up, and most importantly, trying to encourage anyone that's listening to give what they can to Foundation Beyond Belief's relief effort. So before we get started, I want to give the site address for donations. To give money to the relief effort, you want to head to FBBGive.org. That's FBB as in Foundation Beyond Belief, give.org. Head over to the site, help with any amount. I'm announcing a goal of $1,000 for this 4 hours. I think we can do it. And at the top of the show here, I'm going to say the Gaytheist Manifesto is going to be matching the first $200 of donations. So, when we hit 200, as soon as the broadcast's over, I'm going to get out the card and donate $200 on behalf of the show. So let's use that to motivate us. So let's get there quick. So we've got a cool first hour. Before I bring in our main guest for the first hour, I want to introduce the head of Foundation Beyond Belief's Humanist Disaster Recovery Team's Rebecca Vitzman. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So talk to me real quick about the Humanist Disaster Relief. What do you guys do?
Okay, so we're Humanist Disaster Recovery. We have two different arms of the program. The first one is a donation program where we accept donations and then we give them to secular organizations that work on the ground after disaster. These are organizations that are committed to long-term recovery, and they're specifically secular. In the past, we've worked with St. Bernard Project, which is named St. Bernard Project because of St. Bernard Parish in which they work in. They're not actually related through religion. And then All Hands is another beneficiary that we've had in the past, and we've actually worked with them on the ground. The other program that we have that's under the HDR, Humanist Disaster Recovery umbrella program, is Humanist Disaster Recovery Teams. Those are volunteers who work on the ground after disaster. Like I said before, we have worked we've been deployed out twice so far. We helped clean up after a flood that was in Columbia, South Carolina in 2016, and then we helped again after the flooding in Denham Springs, Louisiana, after again a flood. And we do anticipate that there will be the need for us to be there after this in Houston. So tonight, while we're raising funds not only to potentially donate to organizations who will be working on the ground, but also we would love to be able to send out teams, but that'll only be able to happen if we can raise the money to be able to do so.
Yeah, and I was talking to Jennifer, who also works with you guys earlier, and so far you guys have raised $10,750 for this entire project. And like I said, this hour we're hoping to add $1,000 to that. We've got some cool folks on with lots more reach than we would have on our own, so I think we can get it done. So anything will be helpful. FBBGive.org. Rebecca, thank you so much for what you all do. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes to hang out with us, and best of luck. We'll keep you updated through the night, okay?
Hey, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
I'm Kermit now. Don't know why.
Well, we have got a cool first hour here. Anyone who is watching the video on Facebook Live already knows who we have on the show, but for those listening at Spreaker.com, by the way, hi to Trav. Trav seems to be the only one in chat that's live on Spreaker. That's cool. What's going on, Trav? This hour we have our dear friends Marissa McCool and Steve Shives. Hello, friends.
Hello. No, it's Steve Cuckboy Shives. I forgot the middle name.
When we were talking on Facebook, I think I called him the cuckiest cuck on YouTube. And I think that's what we're going to stick with. And Danielle Muscato will be joining us later. She's running a bit late, so.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a title I will not relinquish easily. I will fight. I will fight to defend it.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't even give it up for Janet Mock.
I did. Thanks for putting that out there. Now
no
Janet Mock's gunning for me.
Steve Shives should fight Janet Mock.
Right.
For charity right now.
Steve's our token sis, so he's gonna take a lot of abuse this hour, and I'm okay with it. So obviously coming up with 4 hours of conversation between, I think we've got a total of 9 or 10 guests throughout the 4 hours. Spent a lot of time thinking, like, what the hell are we even going to talk about? Like, because normally I spend some time trying to figure out conversation topics. And Marissa and I had, what is the thing where like two people have the same idea at the same time but separately, like
magic.
Yeah,
psychic powers,
like Darwin and the other guy who thought up evolution, but no one ever knows. Just like I just don't know the guy's name.
You're on trans telepathy. That's how it works. That's how we all communicate with each other, so we know which bathrooms to go in, so that we can freak people out. Right? That's just what we do.
You're not wrong. But Marissa was like, "Well, why don't we do good news?" And I literally, like, as I typed and hit send, I was like, "Yeah, that's a fantastic idea." Because good God, has the world been a sewer lately? So I think that's something we all need. So, I mean, I think my good news is fairly obvious to anyone who follows me on Facebook or anything like that. Celeste and I have been recovering from surgery. Tomorrow will be a month for me, and Wednesday will be 5 weeks for her. To be honest, I could probably spend the entire 4 hours talking about my vagina. Because it's been that interesting. It's been that interesting of an experience.
So you're saying it'd be your vagina monologue?
Nice.
I like what you did there. That's good.
Were you hoping you would have an opportunity to say that, or did that just come out like naturally?
No, it just came out. I don't plan anything. You should know this by now.
Yes, Marissa's just that good. That's really all that comes down to. So yeah, I mean that's obviously my thing. I'm on the upswing. Obviously, if I wasn't feeling at least halfway decent, I wouldn't be doing this. Still a little bit of pain. I'm kind of sore, which is why my podcast setup is on the couch now instead of at my desk. But I'm doing all right. Feeling pretty good. So yeah, we'll leave the whole vagina story for another episode.
Damn it.
So
I came for the vagina. Come on.
Coming for that pussy.
Oh God.
Well, I got to know what I'm in for, My turn next.
Right. So, Ari, why don't you go first? What's your good news? What do you got?
I'm broadcasting from my new home in Colorado. Yay!
Yeah, how's that been? I know there was some question about like making sure you had enough money and all that fun stuff. All that turned out okay?
It did. Thanks to lots of awesome people donating to my GoFundMe, we were able to make enough money to buy or rent a U-Haul and, pay for the first month deposit and everything. But everything's going well now, and I've started school. I started last week, and I'm not sure quite what I'm doing, but I think things are going to be okay, and I'm really excited.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. And I've really loved your like lib shit I see around campus Facebook posts.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which is known to be a pretty conservative town, at least for Colorado. It's where the Air Force Academy is, and it is the home of Focus on the Family, which is pretty much an anti-queer hate group. But UCCS, the school, is, it's like most universities. It's pretty liberal. So I thought it would be fun to do some photo albums on Facebook of, one is called Live Shit I See on Campus, and that's just what it sounds like, just live shit I see on campus. And then other things that contrast with that in the general Colorado Springs area. I've seen a lot of interesting bumper stickers on cars. There was one when I was coming back today from Boulder, and I couldn't get a picture in time, but they had several bumper stickers on their car. There was an InfoWars bumper sticker. There was a 9/11 was an inside job. Something about fluoride being in the water, being bad for you.
Yeah, I kind of.
Colorado's a really interesting place.
I almost had an aneurysm when I saw one of those in San Francisco. I was like, I thought I thought this place was supposed to be immune from that stuff. Like, there was a traffic sign at one of the intersections right by where we were staying. So like, every time, because we had to be there about a week early for our pre-op visits and stuff, so like we actually had time to, like, I mean, we obviously like didn't have a bunch of money to do tourist stuff, but you can still like go to the beaches, and like we found a museum that was like half price off, so like we were able to do some stuff. So like there's this one intersection by where we were, every time we went by there was this big InfoWars stickers on the back of a traffic sign. I just like died a little on the inside every time we passed it. I'm like, this is San Francisco, god damn it.
They're everywhere, infiltrating.
Right. Marissa, what do you got?
Well, I had two new things go down pretty much at the same time. I just moved to Minnesota a couple months ago, and I had my first job application /interview /job under my real name. So I, had my first day, and I walked in, asked for my specific name tag, and during the interview made sure, like, hey, if anyone, like, uses trans slurs or anything like that, like, I don't have to take it, right? And they actually said, if anybody uses those words against you, we will escort them from the building. And it's like, wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's new. So I also, like Ari, am starting grad school, and I took my first tour of the campus, University of Minnesota Duluth. And for someone who went to downtown Philadelphia every day for the last 4 years, being on a hill where there's no people and like a fourth of the total students, it took about 18 seconds for me to go, oh, this is what people do when they're not in hell. Got it. If you've never been to Philadelphia, it sucks. Like, it really sucks. And, you know, our campus was right in the middle of Center City, and there were always sirens and, you know, crime alerts and a lot of traffic because Philly, imagine. And, yeah, so UMD's up on this hill, and Duluth is already a pretty chill town. And I showed up, walked around for a few hours. Nobody gave me a problem. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's Minnesota. You should expect that. It's like, well, I came from Philadelphia where they're the city of brotherly go fuck yourself. So it's just I'm still adjusting.
Right. Brothers can fuck each other sometimes.
Well, everybody.
Friends especially
like
can fuck.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Danielle is here.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Danielle.
So are we doing video or is this just audio?
Yeah, if you're okay with turning on video, we're on.
Yeah, sure.
We're on Facebook Live, so you know we're doing the thing.
Great.
Talking about
Can you see me?
fucking.
Yeah.
I cannot. I just see your
icon.
profile picture at the moment.
Oh, let me see if I can fix that. Okay.
It's a good.
How are you guys
it's a
doing?
good profile picture. We're good.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we're in the middle of talking about Marissa's good news because she's doing college things in a city that doesn't suck, and she's real excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Or at least a city that doesn't suck so far, right? I mean, like it always seems
So
great
far.
when you very first get there.
The suck has not revealed itself yet.
It's not Philadelphia. That is a win alone.
Fair.
I'm still adjusting from dealing with being in Philadelphia because in Philadelphia, if you make eye contact with somebody, they just might hit you. And here, everybody like demands that you make eye contact and say hello. And I'm still in the habit of looking down and away. They don't notice I'm trans. They don't notice I'm trans. Just keep walking. And now everybody's like, "Hey, how are you?" Like, what is this witchcraft? I don't understand it.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand this friendliness thing. I don't. That's not. We don't do that here.
No. Is
They're
this
trying
how
to
you
trick
treat a
me.
Human?
Awesome. Well, Danielle, since you're here, let's hear what
There
what do
we
you,
are.
you got some good news to share?
Oh, sure. Putting right on the spot. Okay, well, I'm in New York City. I live in Manhattan now. I just moved here a week ago today.
That's awesome.
And I'm really excited. And I'm going to try to raise up my computer a little bit. I've got a nice big Lasar's Encyclopedia of Popular Music in America. So we'll put that underneath.
Nice.
Okay, so plop. Yeah, I just moved to Manhattan last week. I really like it here. I am living with a friend's mother. Who had an empty room available. It's actually my friend's old childhood bedroom, so it's kind of weird to be in here. We're very, my friend and I are extremely close, and it's a little different, but it's okay. So yeah, this is great. I love St. Louis, and I love the activism work that I was doing there, but there's no place on earth like New York City. And just this past week, I haven't really been doing much except trying to just relax and get my head together, and I've met up with a bunch of friends and seen a bunch of activist people that I know up here, and yeah, it's exciting working on some really fun projects coming up.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Very exciting. And selfishly, what I wanted to talk about, if it's okay,
we can talk anything you want.
the pictures that you posted from SSA Con, where
Okay.
you're going out en femme, as it were, I guess, you know, dresses and that kind of stuff for the first time,
Yep.
and like, you know, when you were like trying clothes on at Torrid and stuff like that. I always like to point out that I recognize that other people's transitions and other people's milestones aren't about me, but that's still like that gave me life. Like, you were glowing.
I'm so happy to hear it.
Like, you were glowing so hard in those pictures. It was so amazing to see, because I know we've talked before. That was kind of a struggle for you, right?
Very much so, because so I can't transition medically as much as I would like to until I have heart surgery, which I can't afford, and there are some other pretty major complications that are delaying that significantly. But so I am on estrogen, but I'm on a very, very low dose of estrogen, and I'm not on progesterone or anything. And so even though I've been out of the closet since 2014, I still look just like this. And it's really distressing to walk around dressed femme, looking like a dude, and I was homeless in there for a little while. Actually, quite a while, and being homeless and trans and dressing femme when you look like this is dangerous. So I avoided that. I continued dressing masculine, even though I was very uncomfortable doing that. But it was a matter of safety, and it was a trade-off. And when I was no longer homeless and was able to start getting some proper medical care slowly, but getting toward the stage of where I am right now. I started to look into that. It was also just a matter of money. Replacing your whole wardrobe is very expensive, especially if you're just coming out of homelessness.
God, I'm familiar. I've had to do that 3 times now between transitioning and losing weight. Yeah, I've had to do that about 3 times now.
Yeah, and I've also because part of my heart issue, I need to lose weight before surgery, and I'm on an appetite suppressant. I've lost 30 pounds. My surgeon wants me to lose 20 more before my heart surgery. So I'm additionally, aside from getting femme clothes, now I have to buy clothes again. That's always fun. It is fun. I like clothes shopping, but it's just when you have no money, it's a little more difficult.
Right.
Yeah. But
Danielle,
yes.
2 things.
Uh-huh.
1, you do not look like a dude. You look like you, and that's what matters.
That's true.
And second, hold on. I do some other obscure show with Ari Stillman as a co-host, and the last 2 weeks we have had people who have been trans and homeless, and that you are a brave person, and it takes a lot to go through that and maintain who you are. And the last 2 weeks have given me such an appreciation for what that's like. And I, even as much of an activist as I try to be, had no idea just how much things people had to go through. So I commend you on being so strong.
I appreciate it. I feel like I don't really have a choice though. Like I mean, I was actually, just trigger warning here. I was suicidal for a while because I couldn't transition, and because my life was just so shitty. And I have chronic pain also that wasn't being treated for a long time, and just the combination of all those things. It really wasn't. It wasn't easy, but I don't feel like I was courageous or brave or anything like that. I feel like it was either continue or die. And it's not like I had a choice in this. It's not like I decided I'm going to forge it. I was like, well, I don't want to die, so I guess I'll go in the other direction.
Yeah.
Sometimes surviving is brave.
Well, and the thing for me too, it's not so much because I hear that a lot, just talking about my experience, like being trans and coming out and stuff, and people talk, that's really courageous, that's really brave, and I appreciate the sentiment, but I'd kind of say the same thing. Like for me, it was a matter of survival. Like I wouldn't I wouldn't have survived if I didn't deal with this. So it was like transitioning was more kind of an act of desperation, honestly. Like
exactly.
But I think the thing that I respect about your journey is that while you were going through all of that, you were still doing activism stuff. Because in my mind, I'm thinking about there's an interview that I did for my other show that I haven't put out yet with a homeless trans couple, and they're homeless, they have kids, and they're still doing activism.
Did I lose you guys?
And no, you're still here.
Sorry, my internet is spotty. Okay,
you're all right. And through all of that, they're still doing activism. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't know if I would be able to do that if I were in that position. Like, the survival thing, obviously, like, I mean, I wouldn't really have a choice in that. But to choose to go above and beyond that and continue to do activism and continue to advocate for people, I think that's the thing that gets me and saying like wow, like I have so much respect for what you do. So that's really that's where I'm at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And there's 2 reasons that I did that. One is that I feel like it's the most important thing that I can be doing with my time. And it's very important for me to continue doing activism no matter what else is going on. And I mean, it's one thing to take a break for self-care reasons briefly, but I'm never going to retire. I mean, unless every single person who is oppressed is no longer oppressed, I'm never going to stop doing this because there's more work to do. And I feel obligated and called to do this work. And then the other reason is that if I didn't do this work if I didn't focus my passion and energy and attention on something, I probably would be much more depressed. And seeing there are results that happen from activism. I mean, just last week, because of all the backlash against Charlottesville, they canceled dozens of rallies. And I mean, it works, like we're seeing the results of this stuff. And it doesn't always work the way we want. It doesn't always work as fast as we want, but it does work. And I think it's so important to keep that in mind when we're doing this activism. It's not the return on investment is slow, but it's there, and we just have to keep pushing. We have to keep working on it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that was actually, something that I was thinking about putting this whole thing together. I was because I've kind of been there. Like, I realize, like, I'm recovering from major surgery. I can cut myself a break. Like, I don't have to be, Miss Activist on top of everything while I'm recovering from surgery. Yeah. But, like, that's part of who I am, right? Like, right. I want to be advocating. I want to be educating. I want to be helping people. I want to be doing something. And so it wasn't so much like I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I was like, oh, I'm being lazy and just thinking about myself. Like, I was cutting myself some slack on that, but it's still really hard to see all this stuff going on and feel like there's nothing I can do about it. And so, when I initially had the idea to do this, because I was thinking, like, I know Noelle, the executive director of Foundation Beyond Belief, she's not directly in the path of the storm, but there's flooding happening around her because of the remnants that where it's a tropical storm now. They're being dumped on. They're prepping their house for flood stuff. So I mean, it's obviously it affects people, and that matters. But it's also affecting people that I care about, because I love Noelle to death. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what can I do to help? And I'm like, am I up to this? And I'm like, it's not even really a matter that I'm up to this, because doing this kind of stuff actually makes me feel better. When I open up the Google Doc and I'm like reaching out to people to try and get people booked on the show, and I'm like, I'm back in my element. Like, this actually makes me feel better. It's obviously it's an energy drain, and I don't have a ton of extra energy yet. I'm a month out. That's not a ton of time from a surgery as big as this. So like I'm still kind of running low on gas and stuff. But in the middle of doing it, I realized, I was like, wow, I should be really exhausted right now, but I feel really energized. So yeah, that's a great point. People for whom activism is a thing, I think it's such an integral part of who we are. It's almost obviously I don't think any of us do activism for what we get out of it, but we do get something out of it. And I think that's worth talking about.
Money, fame.
Oh my gosh, yeah. If we were doing this for, if we were doing this for money, we that's what cracks me up about these people on Twitter and stuff that are like, you just are, e-begging and you're just doing this for money. It's like, do you have any idea how much I make? Like, you would not want to trade places with me, trust me.
Yeah. All that activist money. It's super exciting.
That's George.
I would. Where do I sign up to be a paid protester? Where do I get that job? Because I'm in. All right, Steve, what do you got? You got some good news for us?
Yeah, I have. Well, my good news was good news for a lot of other people too, because I don't have any personal adversity to overcome.
You silly Sith boy.
But before I do, I just want to say I think it's awesome, Danielle, that you're in New York, because I remember when we saw each other earlier this year in D.C., you had said you were hoping you could move back east at some point to get a little bit maybe more in the thick of things. And when our mutual friend Lee told me you were coming to New York, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So
yeah, I'm just here for 3 months, but
but it's still cool.
I'm having a good time, and
it's still cool.
Yeah.
But no, my good news was we had an eclipse, and I got to see it, and it was awesome. And
you actually get to see totality?
I didn't get to see totality, but every other eclipse that we've ever had, that it was always either cloudy, or like it was raining that day, or I never got to see it. So for this eclipse, me and my wife, we got to go outside, and she made a little eclipse viewer out of an empty ice cream bar box, and some aluminum foil, and we stood out and got to watch the progression of the eclipse. We got about, I don't know, maybe 3/4, 4/5 totality. We were just a little bit outside the path of totality. But it was awesome. And then today, and I did a hangout on my YouTube channel, and one of my guests in the hangout shared photos that he had taken just on his phone. He MacGyvered this. He took the lens out of like a pair of eclipse glasses and put it over his camera on his phone, and took photographs of it. And he was in the path of totality, and they looked like NASA pictures. Like, they were just awesome. So it really made my day. But it was really cool. Like, I live in a small rural community where pretty much everybody is like a Trump voter. And it's not exactly a hotbed of like science and enlightenment, you know, but everybody was outside looking at the eclipse. Like, there were people who had they had eclipse viewers, you know, the big tubes that, you know, projected onto the ground. There were people with the glasses, people with, like, we had like makeshift little eclipse viewers. It was really cool. And nobody that I saw was looking directly at it, which means at least people who live here are better informed than the president of the United States. Who looked directly at it.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I was really bummed when I realized, because I was like, I realized probably 2 or 3 weeks before it happened, I was like, oh shit, that's happening then. But I was still in San Francisco at the time, and I'm like, I am in no position to like go out and try and find some eclipse glasses or anything like that. So like, I'm probably just going to have to live this vicariously through Facebook. And, you know, it's fine. I figure like I'm privileged enough to where if I really want to see an eclipse, I can probably travel to somewhere in a country or somewhere in another country where there's going to be one and get there. And I was thinking about it, like, because there were a couple of people who had stuff and they were like, oh, you can come hang out with us. Like, they had like modified their telescopes and that kind of stuff. So like, I was thinking about getting out, but you know, again, at that point, I was just so iffy. Like, I would have felt bad because I couldn't drive. So if, you know, I dragged anyone out and, you know, it turned bad, I'm like, hey, you have to leave this really fun thing because I have to go home because I'm in pain. Like, I didn't want to do that to anybody. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to miss this one. And I'm kind of bummed about it because it looked pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know, the next one, the next total solar eclipse visible from the U.S. is only 7 years away. The last one was almost 40 years ago, but the next one is only 7 years from now.
Oh, well, that makes me feel even better. Why did I think? I thought I remembered someone saying it's going to be like 100 years before this happens again. Like, is that?
Well, it was 100 years since this had happened.
Okay.
But I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think it's 100 years until the next one.
No,
okay.
It's only and there. I think there's usually one visible from somewhere on the world, like every year. I mean,
there's one next year in East Asia somewhere, and there's a drive to collect. I've got the glasses here, and there's a drive to. They're saying don't throw them away. They're collecting them. I think it's Engineers Without Borders or scientists with somebody is collecting them and going to send them over there so that we don't have all this waste from those. So there's one next year.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about that. That's awesome.
And even if there is one in 100 years, that's okay, because by then we'll have the life extension technology.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope we have it before then so I can go.
Yeah.
We'll be heads in jars like Futurama. We'll all just be sitting on a shelf waiting for the eclipse.
Oh, God. That's a really great mental picture. I would love all of us as heads in jars.
Hey, Callie, before we go on, I got a message from a listener. This is from Jeremia, I think it says. Jeremia T. They said, I don't really know their pronouns, so I'm just going to say they. They said, if the Gaytheist Manifesto makes its goal, I will set up a reward. Okay. I will not live stream myself dancing in a Speedo.
See, I'm conflicted.
More like blackmail.
Yeah.
How can I promote this? Because I'm on my Twitter right now, and
we need to prevent him from live streaming himself dancing in a Speedo. We need to hit $1,000.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Emergency.
And that site, again, for anyone watching on Facebook Live, anybody listening on Spreaker, it's fbbgive.org. FBB, as in Foundation Beyond Belief, give.org. We're shooting for $1,000. The show is going to match the first 200. So I'm going to be getting updates from Jennifer from Foundation Beyond Belief at about 50 minutes past each hour. So we'll see where we're at. Like I said, we're shooting for $1,000. So if you can, head over there. We want to help these guys out. They're one of my favorite charities. I after lots of recent events in the community, I hesitate to personally endorse anyone at this point. But Noelle and the folks at Foundation Beyond Belief are people that I honestly feel totally comfortable saying, give them your money, because we can trust that it's going to good use. They're good people. One of my favorite things about Foundation Beyond Belief is how they operate, because a lot of times what happens when you give to a charity, some of that donation has to go to operating expenses, right? Because charities can't operate if they don't pay for the office they need, for their internet connection, or in bigger charities, their employees, that kind of stuff. And I don't have a problem with that, obviously, but it does sometimes blunt the impact of the money that you give. But the way Foundation Beyond Belief works is their operating expenses are actually paid by a separate fund that by people who specifically donate to cover their operating expenses. And so if you donate to them and say, I want to give money specifically to this project, all of your money goes to that project. And that's one of the things that I love so much about the way that they operate. And more than that, Noelle is a friend, somebody I've spent a lot of time talking to. She's the executive director. I think she's an awesome person. And so I'm really, really excited to do, what little part we can. Does anybody else we got about 20 minutes left before we got to take a break here. Does anybody else have any other good news to share? Yeah, Marissa, what do you got?
I got about a couple people who submitted, and I'll keep them brief because we are limited on time.
Yeah, let's do the thing.
We have a return guest from one of your good news episodes who will use the name Linda because that's what she asked. Sure. And she got her legal name changed, so that's something that's super happy for her.
My 3-year anniversary of that was a couple of days ago. Because my 3-year anniversary of that was a couple of days ago, and my 4-year anniversary of coming out was like a week and a half or 2 weeks after my surgery. So it's like lots of really cool anniversaries lining up. That's good stuff. Congrats, Linda.
Yep. Brandon says it's going to be mostly a recovery day of movies and art things, which, God, that's lazy, or so somebody would say. My friend Jell will be leaving the hospital on Tuesday. My friend Amanda says they're trying for a rainbow baby and things are looking up.
Wait, explain this. Are they going to put dye in the uterus and mix it around and hope it doesn't turn brown? Like the red?
No, they're just going to vaccinate them, Ari. That's how this works.
Oh, okay.
Jazz says that their city Calgary did a bunch of trans pride crosswalks for Pride this year.
Yeah, I saw that. That's really cool.
Gabriel says his cookies came out great, but that's not good news because I can't have any. And, of course, my partner, Devin, is moving to the Twin Cities area, which will be of no benefit to me whatsoever. So I'm just going to let that one slide.
I don't know anything about what that's like to move to be closer to a partner.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks a lot. I hate it.
Let's just say they keep me in line as much as that's possible.
I think
I want to share some good news.
I feel like keeping you in line is a full-time job.
It is. That's why I needed more than one person to do it.
The entire reason for your polyness. The only reason for it.
Yep.
My good news is that so far nobody at Foundation Beyond Belief has been accused of embezzlement or kicking puppies. So that's good news.
So far.
Yeah, that's why I said so far.
To date.
Oh my gosh, if it comes out later that somebody here was stealing money and we gave them this money, we're going to look like idiots. Don't do this to us.
Yeah, can we wake up one day without somebody
all about our reputation.
Saying something that's like, God damn it.
Yeah, I was just say the Pathios blog will be up in 2 or 3 days, I'm sure.
The takedown.
Oh God. So weird. Well, I'll tell you what. Since we've still got some time here, I'm gonna go ahead and share a vagina story.
Yay!
Because this is fun. Okay, so content note, genital talk, surgery talk, dysphoria talk, that kind of fun stuff. So, so 1 week follow-up visit is when the real fun begins. So it's like they take the sutures out, they take the packing out stuff, and you start dilating. They test to make sure that you can pee okay, all that kind of fun stuff, right? So we get there, and how they test to see if you can pee after they take the catheter out is they basically shoot saline into your bladder, And I'm super nervous because right,
That sounds like so much fun.
Ari's face. And I was really nervous because Celeste had trouble and had to have a catheter for an extra week, and I was like, not into that, like, because it was causing me some serious pain. And so was like, I feel like I really gotta pee, like I think it's time. And she's like, okay. And I was like, like I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to hold it. And she's like, oh, you'll be able to hold it. And I'm like, okay, like you're the expert, I'm gonna trust you on this. And so she takes it out. And she's like, all right. And I was like, so I have to get up and walk to the bathroom, right? You're not just like going to give me a pan or something? And she's like, no, you get up and walk to the bathroom. It's just right down the hall. Okay. And so I stand up and immediately just not holding it well. And the nurse is like, it's okay, just get to the bathroom. And I'm really hopped up on pain meds at this point. So like I'm kind of loopy. And I'm walking down the hallway with no pants on, with this little like paper blanket covering me, and I'm walking down the hallway going, I'm not doing a good job. I'm not doing a good job.
You got a preview of old age.
It was so great. But thankfully I did pee enough, and I didn't need a catheter again. So that was all good stuff. But that's just like, out of the whole thing, I think that's probably it wasn't fun at the time, but just looking back, I think that might be my favorite memory, because it's just the most absurd thing I can think of. Like, this me on drugs, because like I don't drink very often at all, and when I do, I usually get barely tipsy. I don't even really get drunk. I don't do drugs, and it's not a moral thing. Like, I don't have anything against people who do any kind of drugs or whatever, as long as you're safe or whatever. But it's just not generally a thing that I do. So like, it's just things get absurd. It's weird. I don't know.
I'm just trying to think if I have any funny and then I peed myself stories, and I don't. So you've got it. You've got one over on me.
Well, that's I am me. So
I've got another piece of good news.
Yeah, let's hear it. What do you got?
I recently was diagnosed with sleep apnea, which I suspected that I have suspected that I had that for years, but I recently did a sleep study and was actually diagnosed with it. And I have insurance now, and I've met my out-of-pocket maximum for the year. So they are sending me. I was worried about how we were going to do this because I live in New York right now, and my insurance is only full in Missouri. And when I originally called to talk about getting a CPAP machine, they're like, well, you can go to somewhere in New York and they have an appointment, set up, and they'll fit you for it and so on. But because my insurance isn't any good out here because of our stupid system that does that, it was going to cost me a couple $1,000. And I was like, well, that's not happening. I guess I'm coming back to Missouri for a couple days. And the woman on the phone at the clinic was like, well, let me check something. So she checked into it, and she gets back on the phone. She says, we can mail this to you if they send it to us here, and we'll just send you a generic mask. And if you need a different mask, you can just be fitted for a mask, but you don't have to pay for the whole unit. And I was like, that sounds a lot better. So they're FedExing me a CPAP machine, and I'm going to start using it. And I hope that this makes a big difference because, I sleep horribly.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty about it.
I've been using my machine for about a little over a year now. It was a year in April, I think. And it's one of those things where I really did not realize how much of a zombie I was, because it was it was normal to me, right? Like I was just used to being that exhausted. I was used to being that I don't want to say confused, but like I could tell that my capacity, my mental capacity was diminished.
Well, sleep deprived, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah. So, right.
But it had become normal. So so I didn't really realize, and even after my sleep study, because the way they did my sleep study, they were like, usually we do a 2-night thing. So the first night they get a baseline, they let you sleep, and they just figure out what's going on, and then they bring you back for a second night and put a machine on to see what the machine does. But the nurse was like, well, if it's bad enough, we'll just put a machine on that night. And I was like, I'll see you in about an hour. Just because I knew. Like, I mean, everyone who's ever slept in the same room with me, I mean, that's the first thing when we wake up. Like, oh my god, I didn't get any sleep at all because you snore so fucking loud.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I can't share rooms at conferences unless I bring earplugs for the people that I'm sleeping with, because it's like they can't sleep through my snoring. It's horrible.
Yep. And sure enough, yeah, I was asleep, I think, for about an hour and a half before they came in, and they were like, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and do this. And and even that night, I slept for about 5 hours, and I woke up the next day, and I was like, oh my god, like, I feel like I just feel like more alive. It was the weirdest thing, and it was weird too, 'cause for a couple of weeks, like, it's hard to describe, but it's like reality got super real. It was like everything around me just seemed really hyper real for a minute, and like, that's the best way to describe it. And I know that, like, for someone who hasn't experienced it, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but it was just like, my vision's clearer, colors are brighter. Like, I have pretty.
I thought you said you didn't do drugs.
Right? Yeah.
What did they put in that machine, Callie?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think I have like quiet sleep apnea because I don't snore at all, but my Fitbit says I wake up about 23 times a night. So I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Well, you don't need to snore to have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea just means that you stop breathing during the night. And some people snore, but that has to do with the shape of your soft palate and the way that your muscles work. And there's some other things that contribute to that. Often snoring accompanies that, but not always.
Yeah.
If you suspect that you have it, you might get a sleep study.
Yeah, like, especially if your insurance will cover. I actually got a surprise $750 bill after my sleep study.
Yeah, if your insurance will pay for it, yeah.
Yeah, I got a surprise, really high bill. Luckily, they let me do payments, so I paid it off like $60 at a time over a period of time. But yeah, I actually think I made my last payment on it like 2 or 3 months ago. But I mean, you know, it's obviously it's a measure of privilege to be able to do that at all. But something that, like, if you're capable of, I would encourage looking into, because it literally changed my life in a ton of ways that I totally didn't anticipate. So good stuff. That's awesome. Who else has got good fun stories? We got about 6 minutes until we need to take a break here.
I got a quick one left.
Yeah.
Ari and my show hits 25 episodes in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we designed T-shirts with my favorite Ari quote on them, because Ari always ends the skits with a random, like, interjection that cracks everybody up. And so our new cis are getting out of hand T-shirts just say, "I am an irritated bystander."
I love that it's just the ad-lib line that I do at the end of a skit that gets onto a T-shirt. Like, the stuff I actually wrote out. Who cares about that crap? Just the random thing that I just came up with.
Right. And speaking of the skits, we offered a Patreon goal that was, if we get to a certain amount of patrons, that patrons can all be a part of the skit. And I was like, oh, nobody will want to do this. It took 2 days. Like, all of a sudden, oh, I guess we got to let these people in on our scripts now. Shit.
Yeah, we've got a 30-person script to write. It's fine. It's good. No worries.
No,
You're
one
all
at a time.
chorus.
Oh, one at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Irritated
it's bad enough.
bystander number 2.
It's bad enough we're letting some cis people on the show to say that we're awesome for episode 25, but we are not tolerating more than one on the show for a skit. That's absolutely no.
Well, more than one at a time can be a bit much, you know.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's why Steve is here and no other cis are like invading.
We do get out of hand.
It's true.
We take over. I mean, it's true. I won't deny
I'm
it.
glad you can recognize that. What a good cis boy.
I wish there was something I could do about it, but you know.
You could stop getting out of hand so much.
You want
You
me
could
to
control
stay?
your kind.
You want this to stay in hand? I think that's just unreasonable.
Apologize for your gender.
We're just so used to being out of hand. I don't know. It's just it's a major change, you know.
Out of hand privilege.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why don't you just use your cis telepathy that you have with the other cis people and tell them not to do that? Like,
Well,
that's what the trans people do. Why can't you do that?
True.
We have over the years we've lost that ability because we realized we didn't need it. because we were in charge of everything anyway.
Right, for the same
So we
reason.
lost the ability.
For the same reason that humans don't have tails anymore. It's just not a thing that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
exactly.
There's probably too much inbreeding, too much cis on cis action going on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, it's like
Trait got evolved out.
It's like how all the kids in the royal family have hemophilia. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's just
fair.
it's a byproduct of consanguineous mating.
Wow.
There's some anthropology for you.
Right. We got about 3 minutes left. Anybody else got any cool stories? Don't everybody jump in all at once
Don't
now.
everybody do.
I mean, I could talk about my
Micing up.
vagina some
What was the last thing you said?
Oh, I was just asking if anybody else had any more good news to share. And we got about 3 minutes left.
Highway to Heaven is on Netflix. That was good news to me when I saw it.
That's fair.
I was on a date on Thursday night at a fetish club, and someone did the lesbian hair pull on me, and apparently that's Rissy mode quiet activated, as they put it. So that's a thing.
That's all. Wait, I thought you were just going to say I was at a fetish club. Was your
Well,
good news? 'Cause,
yeah,
I would have been into that too.
Well, sure. But I was talking shit, as I usually do, because I'm a fucking brat, and then the person I was on a date with just reached back up there and grabbed the hair, and I'm like, oh, my drink is empty. This is interesting. I should go do something about that. So
Right on.
I have a quiet mode activated switch. That is a cool story.
All right, in the 2 minutes left, Steve, I gotta talk to you about something. So part of my good news is the fact
There's
that
some
Star
dirty
Trek
laundry.
Discovery premieres soon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
and so the first trailer, I'm gonna be honest, kind of underwhelmed me.
Okay.
But all of the trailers that I've seen since then actually look pretty awesome.
I agree.
My only worry is that Star Trek is supposed to be hopeful and forward looking and that kind of stuff, and this one looks like it's pretty dark. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be bad. But in the minute we got left, how are you feeling about that?
I'm looking forward to it. I share your sort of apprehensions with some of it, because I think Star Trek should be optimistic too. That's why Star Trek Beyond was my favorite of the new movies, because it was
Same.
the most sort of forward looking and optimistic, and it was about teamwork and everything. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm an optimistic Star Trek fan by nature. So until I watch it and see for myself that it's terrible, if that's what it is, then I'm going to be jazzed about it. So I'm really
Is there
looking
any
forward
white
to it.
genocide in it? Is this the one with the white genocide?
Yes.
I'm hoping that that's all it is. I'm hoping that it's just nothing but, the ship going to different planets and seeing white populations dying off and going, oh, sorry, can't help you.
Awesome.
It'll already have happened because they removed the Confederate statues.
Yeah,
Yeah, no Confederate statues in the 23rd century, so it's done by that point.
that's what happens,
Exactly.
All right, well, we gotta hit a break. Thank you all so much for joining. Everyone watching, listening out there, fbbgive.org. We're due for an update. When we come back from the break, we'll have an update to see how we're doing. Remember, Gay Theist Manifesto is going to match the first $200 in donations. That's fbbgive.org. We will be back in about 10 minutes. And welcome back to the show. We are live the next couple hours for Foundation Beyond Belief for their hurricane relief efforts. We are super, super excited. I just got an update from Jennifer at Foundation Beyond Belief. We started, they'd already raised $10,750, which is pretty awesome. We are now at $11,380. So we're making a dent, friends. We are making a dent. I am really, really excited. So it's FBBGive.org. If you want to give while we're doing this is good stuff. I'm really excited. So this hour I am really, really excited about what we got going on. Give me just a minute here. I am a terrible host and I'm still getting our guests on here. So before we jump in for our main guests, we're going to spend just a few minutes talking to somebody who's actually in the area. Brittany, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. So, Brittany is a member of the Corpus Christi Atheist. So, tell me what you're seeing down there.
So we're post Harvey down here in South Texas. Here in Corpus, where I live, we really didn't get hit hard at all. There's some minimal damage. We see a lot of down fences, some torn up trees. We're out of power in a lot of areas, but we've got running water. We're out of power here at my house, so it's pretty dark. But we're seeing a lot of stores starting to open up again recently. Just here in Corpus is fine. It's really the surrounding areas, the small towns like Rockport, Texas, specifically my hometown, got hit by the eye. Ingleside, Portland, Aransas Pass, all of those towns are really devastated right now. No power, down power lines, gas leaks everywhere, houses gone, completely wiped away. It's pretty massive.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty amazing, I guess amazing might be the wrong word. Some pretty awful pictures of the flooding down there. There's the one that's been floating around of the street sign that's like 17 feet tall, that's almost completely covered in water, and pictures of downtown. And there was that picture of the seniors being waiting to be evacuated from the nursing home in waist-high water. So, it seems like the hurricane itself did some damage, but I think the worst is still to come, because, I mean, it's a tropical storm now, and it's just sitting over top of Houston, just dumping feet and feet of rain. And I guess the worst is yet to come, I guess. Which is why we're doing this. So we want to do what we can. Brittany, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on to tell us what's going on. And all the best to you. Hopefully the worst of it avoids you. It continues to avoid you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Stay safe. Bye.
All right. So now on to our main guest for this hour. 2 years ago, I was honored to have on only our 5th episode the unholy Trinity, quote unquote, of Seth Andrews of The Thinking Atheist, Matt Dillahunty, The Atheist Experience, and Aron Ra. They were in Australia. It was like 4 a.m. my time when we talked, and I was shit at interviewing back then. And they all graciously...
And of course, that was before my time on the show, so it wasn't that great.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But they still graciously took their time out of what I hear was an awesome party at my friend Annie's house to talk to me about current events and activism and what they were doing with their tour in Australia. And here again, 2 years later, and for a good cause, I would like to welcome Matt, Seth, and Aron back to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
That's great to be here.
Yep.
Really glad to have you guys. So before we get started, I want to give the donation URL one more time. It's fbbgive.org to help an amazing secular charity provide hurricane relief. fbb.org. And anything you can, anything helps. So, guys, I spent some time given some thought to think about like what I wanted to talk about this hour, and I went back to what was kind of my first thought when I was reading about the hurricane happening and how it was certain to be really bad, and how bad it's actually turning out to be. And the thought that was frustrating me is that in 2017 we're still largely in this position where in these situations God gets all the credit for any bright spots, people who survive, structures that miraculously survive, Bibles that don't get destroyed, but like none of the blame for any of the bad things that happen. Like we're still here in 2017. And that kind of leads me to reflect on other current events and the seemingly gigantic backward steps we've taken since the election after, really feeling like we had made a lot of progress. And, I'm not sure there's an actual question here, but any of the three of you that would like to jump in, I'd be interested in your thoughts on just kind of where we're at with all of this.
All right. I'm actually... tomorrow morning, I'm recording a video, which I think, assuming it turns out the way I want it to, is going to address some portion of this about trying to find and identify signs from God and how, Katrina hits and Pat Robertson is declaring that it's God's judgment. So the whole thing being somebody thinks it's God's judgment, somebody thinks that it's a sign of something else. There's all these different claims about, what's actually going on. I think I was really impressed, when this thing became Category 4, I was sitting downstairs. We are in Austin, on the south side of Austin, so I knew that all the forecasts showed we weren't going to be getting hit by the brunt of it, but we were going to have rain pretty much all weekend and some high winds. I prepared kind of appropriately and was thankful that I wasn't, directly in the path of it, but I was terrified of what was going to happen. Somebody asked me yesterday, why are these people not evacuating? And I said, well, some of them don't have the dollars to do so, and some of them don't have the sense, S-E-N-S-E, to do so. But so far, I think I've heard, last time I saw a count, there's plenty of property destruction, but I think there's been 3 deaths so far. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's been updated. But this is a Category 4 hurricane. It's the first one to hit the coast of Texas in like 56 years or something. And while I'm here, let's raise money and let's do everything we can to help people. I think it's also worth celebrating that scientific understanding of what actually happens in hurricanes has led to better roadways, better construction, early warning for evacuation, and fewer deaths from these things as well. I don't hear any religions actually doing anything to make the hurricanes better.
Right. Seth or Aron, you got thoughts?
I don't know. Can you see me? My webcam doesn't show that I'm being broadcast.
No, your video is not coming through, but you do have a very handsome profile picture.
Right.
Why is my video not working? Hang on 10 seconds. Let me see. I'm not going to do tech support.
Hear me at all?
Yeah, yep. I got you, Aron. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Good, but at least there's that. So I managed to get to Austin in time to get on the podcast. However, my own personal computer will not connect for whatever reason. It says it has some problem with the network card. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear and see you.
Okay, good. It says there's some problem with the network card, so we're trying to connect a different computer, and so I wasn't even sure if anything's working. I'm currently using.
Working fine.
Very good. All right, well, I thought that the sign from God, the wrath of God, was going to be the eclipse last week, wasn't that? Because there are all these evangelical people that were saying that this was a sign of God's wrath, that the eclipse last week was the sign of God's wrath for allowing homosexuals to exist, I guess.
See, I had heard that the eclipse was going to be proof of a flat Earth. So are those mutually exclusive? Could it be a sign from God and a proof of a flat Earth and the NASA hoax?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that it threw the flat earthers for a loop because their models have no explanation for this.
No, I thought I saw somebody share a meme that had like a super like pseudo intellectual explanation for like how an eclipse can happen, but the Earth can still be flat. Like I have friends like who ironically share from those pages a lot, just like because it is one of those things. It's like you either get depressed about it or you laugh about it. So sometimes you got to laugh about it, I guess.
We know I live in Oklahoma, right? I mean, we have a tornado seasons. Texas is also in that loop, but
doesn't it run from like January to December in Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's everywhere, right? And more Oklahoma. In fact, I talked about this in a speech where I had looked at the aftermath of the Moore, Oklahoma twister, which was their third in 15 years. And I understand, people in the midst of chaos looking to the sky, hoping that there's some master planner out there, and they had these signs up that say, God bless more, pray for us. They're reaching out. This is in many ways how they've been taught by their culture, I think, to express a desire for a fixer. Somebody fix this, to tell me there's a reason that 7 children drowned in the basement of an elementary school during the twister. Tell me there's some master plan in play. But I find all these things in many ways a distraction from the real human work that needs to be done. And I'm often struck, we just raised $15,000. The community raised $15,000 to help somebody who needed medical transport from point A to point B. And I thought, if we just stuck with prayer, we were just sitting around praying for these people, the guy would still be stuck in the hospital or in the facility that he's in. It was getting off our butts and doing something that actually, made the difference. And I think this is the discussion I so often try to have. If prayer makes you feel better, whatever, If prayer provides a placebo effect for somebody who's getting better, I might not even speak out against that. But do something along with it. Be a part of a tangible solution. And that's why I'm so glad to be a part of this, because, we're being a part of a tangible solution to help people in a time of need. So thanks for including me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on.
I don't want to just make fun of everything, and I know it's spelled differently, but if you're getting slammed by 15 tornadoes, pray for more is probably not the slogan.
Right.
Move away from more, I think, should be the slogan. Can you guys see me now? I hit a button and flip the switch.
Yes.
All right, good. Just double check.
Yeah, well, and
you look like you are currently in a documentary.
Yes. This is what happens when a videographer does webcam.
Yep.
Right.
On a side note, Seth, I just replied to your Dropbox thing, so you can look at that later.
Oh,
and what's funny is I actually have so many Christian friends, because I've really stopped organizing my community, honestly, so much around like I do stuff with atheists. I do stuff with people who have the same goals as me. So if we're trying to help people and there are Christians who are on board with that and they're doing the right stuff, then let's do that. And I see so many of my Christian friends slamming that too. And obviously we can talk about the efficacy of prayer or lack thereof and all of that kind of stuff. But like in situations like this, to me, that's almost like, it's not a worthless conversation to have, but in my mind, I'm like, why would we be fighting that? Like, especially with, again, I have so many religious friends that are like, yeah, pray for sure, but like, go out and volunteer or donate money to the Red Cross or call somebody to make sure they're okay. And in that respect, I don't know if it's maybe the changing demographics of the people that I hang out with. Like, I don't know if it's just like confirmation bias, just the people that I happen to be around, where I'm seeing that getting better, or if that's a thing that is actually getting better. Do either of you? I guess we lost Aron. I know he was having some network problems, but either of you have thoughts on that?
I'm happy when anybody's doing good. I don't have any sort of requirement that the people that I work with are people who I agree with on everything. I've said before, the Reverend Barry Lynn, who works for Americans United for Church-State Separation, I'd rather share the stage with him than a good chunk of the atheist community that I know. I'm constantly
divisive. Stop being divisive, Matt.
Yeah, that's me, Captain Divisiveness. If anything, it's weird that I am constantly the diplomat running back and forth between two people who I'm friends with who actually agree almost entirely, but have nitpicked this one point to set themselves up as, mortal enemies. But, I share the stage all the time with people that I absolutely do not like and do not agree with. There are apologists who have just been genuinely terrible. So the mere fact that I'm working with somebody doesn't imply that I agree with them. What I'm seeing in cases like this, if somebody tells me they want to go and, raise money and encourage people to do things to help out for the hurricane, great. I don't care what your religious beliefs are with respect to that issue. I still care. I still care about what people believe because it informs their action. But if they try to tell me that the reason they're doing good is because of their God, well, okay, I'm going to challenge that a little bit. I'm going to challenge any notion that the reason that they're doing this is, has anything any other source than the fact that we are human beings sharing space and we have empathy and we care. We can imagine what it would have been like, for example, if I lived closer to the coast and I got, demolished this weekend, I obviously wouldn't be able to log in and do anything. But here in Austin, we didn't even, I didn't lose power. I lost internet a couple times for 2 or 3 minutes, which affected our Facebook binge watching of Ozark. But
the horror.
But apart from that, I'm happy to work for good with pretty much anybody. There's a couple of exceptions, but and I'll give like one example just because it's in my mind. There's a guy on Twitter whose name I don't remember, so don't ask, who really wanted to jump on board and work with us towards church-state separation issues. Unfortunately, he was also advocating for NAMBLA positions regarding having sex with boys without, just dismissing the idea of consent. And I was like, I don't really care that I agree with you on church-state separation. I want nothing to do with you.
Right.
So there are lines to be drawn.
And for those who are not watching on Facebook, Callie and my face just did the emoji face with the partially blue face with the mouth dropping open and the hands on the cheeks. Aru?
Well, and I guess my question is, do you think that is a more common sentiment? Because again, I don't know if it's just changing demographics of the people that I choose to hang out with and the people that I choose to connect with online, but I feel like that used to be a minority position. Like, I feel like it used to be a lot more militant. Like we're atheists, working with religious people isn't a thing. It's all dumb. We don't want to have anything at all to do with it. We don't want to work with these people, anything like that. Was that an erroneous thing on my part? Was that something that I was seeing? Or do you think there's actually been progression in that way?
Yeah, I really couldn't say. I gave a talk once about how the myth of the atheist community, that there's not a single atheist community. And people have a perspective of what the atheist community is based on what their primary interactions are. If you are primarily watching YouTubers, then you have one view of the atheist community. For example, I've never listened to an episode of Sam Harris's podcast ever. We've had one conversation in my entire life. It lasted about 2 minutes, and I was arguing with him about something. But I'm going to be doing I think we're contracted to do 5 events over the next 4 months. So I'm going to go back and do some research because, I'm hearing things and I want to be fair and address stuff. I don't know that it's so much that you have changed, but decisions about caring about the truth, about nuance, about making sure that you're not just getting one side of a story, even if that side happens to be right, which is the case on quite a few occasions, changes what your perspective of the community is. Now, one thing we know is that the community is growing. And so that means that it doesn't, the perception of it just being, hey, here's a bunch of old white guys talking about how much religion sucks. That's no longer even a sizable portion of the communities that we would label atheist community. I couldn't tell you that the community as a whole has changed or that you have changed which portions of the community you're interacting with, because all of my judgments would be coming from the same sort of bias that are affecting the very question you're asking.
Right, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like to characterize it because I'm a nerd and it's what I do. I always think about let's think about a Star Trek convention for a second. And everybody's there because they love Star Trek, right? But there's all kinds of different Star Trek. So, eventually, the people who love Next Gen the most are going to start hanging out with each other. The people who love DS9 the most are going to start hanging out with each other. The people who love Voyager the most are going to start hanging out with each other. And so, yeah, I quote that a lot.
And those people should die.
Oh,
I told you were divisive.
I know. I'm trying to do this thing without controversy, Matt, because we're doing a charity thing.
Well, you invited the wrong guy if you don't want to. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Yeah, but I say that a lot too. And I quote you. There's not an atheist community. There are atheist communities because, there are obviously people who, for various reasons. I tend to think. And you can tell me if you think this is wrong or not. I tend to think that people care about the conversation about religion, either because they realize that religion is a net harm and they want to do something about that, or you enjoy the philosophical exercise. And there's nothing wrong with either of those two things, but obviously the reason that you're there is going to change what you do. And, the people that I tend to hang around with are the people who are more on the social justice side of things, trying to actually do social issues and that kind of stuff. Cause even though I obviously identify as an atheist, I have an atheist podcast, I run in atheist circles. I don't even know that I would necessarily call that the primary organizing point of the communities that I run in anymore, because I just I've met so many religious people who are more interested in LGBT rights than a lot of the atheists that I've talked to. And I've even sort of had what you could maybe call an atheist crisis of faith. Do I even identify myself as an atheist as a primary thing anymore? Because there's so much under that umbrella that repels me at this point. But there's also so much good, so many good people doing awesome work, and I want to be part of that. So yeah. I don't know. Seth, you've been quiet for a minute. What do you got? You're sitting there looking very thoughtful.
my challenge is, I run a show called The Thinking Atheist, but I found right off the bat, you can only say there is no evidence for any gods anywhere so many times in so many incarnations. And I also became acutely aware more and more as I was doing the work that my non-belief in the supernatural informs my viewpoints on almost everything. Especially if I'm countering, when we go out into the world and we talk about everything from LGBT rights to the death penalty, to death with dignity, to health care, for Pete's sake. Many of the opinions that I now disagree with are often religiously informed. But I'm speaking now against, on a social platform, as much as an atheist one. And I noticed that's where some of the dividing lines began to happen. There were some people who wanted the atheist movement, whatever that is, to be in their back pocket. I always say it's like the indie band. They're like, if they ever have a hit record, man, they ever go mainstream, I'm never going to listen to them ever again, man. Yes. And so, we want our YouTubers to be. We want everything grassroots. We don't want anybody making any money. We don't want anybody to be too popular because then they've obviously sold out. Heaven forbid they ever get a sponsor for their show because now they're a total shill. No, we want atheism to be this. We own it. We're a little niche and we're cool. And I'm like, why would I not want the promotion of the rejection of superstitious ideas to be the most popular thing on the planet? I want to be mainstream. I want to be about quality. I want to be about excellence. And I want our non-belief in deities to speak to other stuff. I think it's a natural segue then into conversations about human worth and about sexuality and our rights and so many other wonderful, even philosophical discussions. I think it's a good fit. But there's this weird splintering because now if you don't talk about or agree with on this social issue or that social issue, you're not just good people in disagreement. Now you're enemies. You're like mortal enemies. And then it becomes this weird game of dodgeball where everybody's picking sides and then flinging stuff at you as hard as they can. I find it so tragic. There's so much work that needs to be done. I think division sometimes necessary. I think sometimes positive conflict is very necessary. But I sure would like to see the negative conflict, the chaos that feeds on itself. I'd like to see that stuff sort of pushed aside so that we can be better toward each other in the big vision. That's kind of my thing. I want my non-belief in magic to inform how I live my life, and I want to talk about those things with other people.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic first, a humanist second, and an atheist third. The biggest reason, I'm on a show called The Atheist Experience, and I tend to debate religious topics because if I have any area of expertise, that may be one of them. It's also, I think, the biggest elephant in the room with, when you're talking about something 60 to 80% of people believe in some form. I don't understand how other skeptics and humanists don't address these things, but I'm not that concerned, honestly. I mean, we posted a link to an event that I'm doing with Dawkins and Harris. And somebody who is, I'm sure, well-meaning, who will remain nameless, immediately posted, "Oh, well, it's great that we've got the diversity problem solved." Because, obviously me, Sam, and Harris, 3 white guys on stage. We have popular, we have audiences. We're not letting anybody else speak. The problem with that was, first of all, you have a diversity of backgrounds and opinions on that stage. But second of all, the only reason and one of the conditions upon which I agreed to do these events is that we follow them up with events including people whose voices I think should be heard and listened to far more than, mine or Richard's or Sam's or anybody. Mm-hmm. So we're doing this event in Vancouver, and the very next night it's going to be me, Tracy Harris, and Sarah Hayter doing an event in the same theater on the same stage to talk about leaving religion. So there are ways to do this. And Tony Penn just gave a great talk, I thought, at American Atheist about the diversity issues, where he was basically saying, put up or shut up. Do you want, your roster at your convention to be diverse just so you can say you're diverse? Well, great. That takes care of one day. What are you going to do the other 364? And there's a lot of things standing in the way to progress, but I'm not panicked because I tend to view it as growing pains, and that the movement is now large enough where we can afford some pushing and tugging as long as we don't allow it to rip us apart. And that's why, apart from being on the board for American Atheists, I'm not tied to any person or group, or I'm me doing my thing, and I'm pretty okay with it. And, if the people aren't, make a case for why I'm wrong, and I'll change.
Yeah, if they got Tracy and Sarah Hayter, why have Matt?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not. I've said before, Tracy's my favorite person on our show, including me, and I'm always in awe of Tracy and Sarah. So
I just want to sit next to Tracy and become smarter by osmosis. I was hoping it would happen. And I had Sarah Hayter on the radio a while back. She is, I think, one of the most effective voices and one of the best at what she does right now. And I'd totally buy a ticket if I was closer to home. I'd totally be there. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I was talking with Gene Elliott, who's the organizer of ReasonCon. and he took me to the airport after the con. So we had like a 45-minute drive, just hanging out and talking. And he was talking about the first Reason Con. Tracy Harris was there and gave a talk, and he drove her to the airport, and he was just talking about how sharp she is. And he's like, yeah, I got up at like 4:30 in the morning to drive her to the airport, and he's like, I'm like 3 cups of coffee away from being awake, and she gets to the car and she's just going, talking about her thoughts on everything and how like just amazingly insightful and smart and energetic she is, even at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
It's not natural. It's not natural.
It's
there's the sinister forces at play. There's some pact has been made. I'm just saying.
Right.
Things we learned tonight. Tracy Harris is a goddamn demon.
She's a demon.
There's a principle in magic that I won't go into, but Max Maven calls it a thing of terrifying beauty, and that is exactly how I view Tracy's brain.
Hey, you never said that about me, Matt. I mean, you know, of all the years we've been pals, it just
poor Seth.
You are one of the hardest working people in the movement. You are one of my best friends, and you do amazing productions. But Tracy's brain is a thing of terrifying beauty, and she will trump your best presentation.
That's my ringtone. I'm going to save that. That's now my new ringtone.
And we all know when there's a like something but something, we know the thing after the but is what he really means.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you said about the sort of dividing lines that are I guess already apparent. I shouldn't even say developing in the movement, and you know, the acknowledgement that obviously some divisiveness is good. And obviously we do need to draw some lines. And I think a lot of times the hard thing to do is to draw the line, is to figure out where to draw the line, right? 'Cause like, obviously if Seth's favorite band is Nickelback, whatever, we can have a reasonable disagreement about that, maybe, I don't know. But like, obviously, you know, somebody who my primary connection with is, let's say, like a group that is church-state separation, like you were talking about earlier, Matt, and then they come in and they're like, yeah, but this trans thing, I really think that like we should be torturing these people, you know, and like those are situations like that's obviously hyperbole, but you know, I've run into situations like that where you know, we're in an atheist group and we're hanging out and we're talking about how God's not real, and then the subject changes, and then all of a sudden I just want to crawl into a hole and die because, you know, this guy is saying all this horrible stuff, and so to me, a lot of times the hard thing is to figure out where to draw the lines and figure out where my priorities are. Like, there are some things that are obvious, but there are some things that are more ambiguous than that, and I guess that's my struggle.
I just try to, you know, and this is nothing new, by the way. I mean, I remember Greta talking about mission creep, you know, a dozen years ago, and I've been doing this 14, 15 years or so. My take on it has always been, I'm fine with people having different priorities. The fallacy that we constantly are talking about is relative primacy. Mm-hmm. That if we're not focused on the biggest issue, we should be only focus on the biggest issue. And it's absurd, because like going to, you know, a cancer research facility and letting them know that, you know, diabetes is actually the bigger issue. Why aren't you doing your research here? I don't care what somebody's primary focus is, as long as it's good. And I don't expect that my background and my experience is going to make me prioritize my concerns in the same way that they do. Not that I think one thing is necessarily more important than another, but it's about triage. It's about where am I going to be most effective. And, you know, I will have a conversation about race or LGBT issues if it seems like I'm the right guy for that at that particular moment. And I'll be supportive of people otherwise. But, you know, saying, well, why isn't this your biggest issue? Kind of misses the point about effectiveness, because, you know, if you had everybody working on something, you still may not solve it. As a matter of fact, you might end up with, you know, too many cooks. And Rebecca will tell you this with regard to proper triage in disaster recovery, that if you come down and get in the way, or, you know, even just handing people money or whatever, may in fact not be the best course of action. Mm-hmm. And so, when, you know, hey, we're doing a fundraiser for this hurricane. Why are you guys talking about the atheist community and not about the hurricane? I don't know, maybe because that's what we were asked about, and I don't know that much about hurricanes. I'm not on the Weather Channel, but I care about people, and if people want to hear me ramble about, I don't even know why anybody listens to me. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to pick maybe my number one or number two least favorite thing, it's that where people immediately when the conversation shifts away from their pet issue, all of a sudden people are being distracted from the real issue. Like I can't even remember how many people I saw when Trump announced the new trans military ban. Automatically it was a distraction, and I'm like,
yeah,
I've only been out and like really politically active in this thing for 4 years, but like, do you honestly think it's really that outlandish that they would specifically target us? Like, you really think, and it would still be bad if they were just throwing us under the bus as a distraction, but like, is it really that hard to believe that they're targeting us specifically? And you see, I mean, again, every single time something happens, it's a distraction from something else, and people don't seem to grasp the fact that it's possible to care about more than one thing at any given time.
I found it perhaps a little telling that the official signing and the pardoning of Arpaio all happened as Hurricane Harvey's slamming into the coast on a Friday night.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That was rather distressing.
I think I'd like to encourage people. I'm not trying to blow sunshine up anybody's ass, and there's a narrative out there that when we see horribly unfortunate and untoward ideas, one thing I have discovered, and I think many have over the past, I've been doing this since 2009, so do the math, but you realize that in this supposedly enlightened movement of free thinkers, you still discover flawed flesh and blood human beings who bring their biases, who bring their bad ideas, their baggage, their corruption. I mean, who knows?
Weird,
and
right?
we see a scandal break out, from time to time, and then we have to jump back in, and we as leaders have that moment where we say, all right, well, we need to obviously speak out, but at the same time, we don't want to be distracted by too much of the. You can get tripped up on every pebble whenever something goes wrong, whenever someone tweets something that's untoward, whenever someone else might be looking for attention. Every day you're making these decisions. Do I engage? Do I stay on the mission at hand? Do I stop? Do I try to set a tone? Do I try to make sure that everyone knows kind of where I stand on this issue, blah, blah, blah. What I'm noticing, though, is because everybody who disagrees on a specific issue is now the other, the enemy, that when the true other pops up, they get lost in the white noise. And I just think, where's the good faith dialogue? Where's the ability for two people of even wildly disagreeing viewpoints to be able to have a discussion, a friendly discussion as friends? Where is this "you must be the enemy" attitude coming from? And how can we get past it so that whenever the true anomalies pop up, the true bad agents pop up, when they are called out, it actually means something. You actually can hear the sound of their expulsion from these good faith conversations because we know they're bad faith agents. We know that they're not interested in good, and we don't want to be associated with them. I'd like to see everybody relax a little bit, so when the battle does come, it means something.
I completely agree, but I don't know that saying I'd like to see everybody relax gets us anywhere any more than saying, hey, let's just not be racist. I mean, this is not getting us any closer, to a solution.
Well, is it the difference between attitude and ideology, though? I mean, if I approach you, Matt, and you and I have a disagreement, and I'm already ramped up and I'm already raging. That's different than I'm a racist and I bring racist ideas to the conversation.
You could be both. You could be a calm racist.
Yeah.
Yes. And this
can you? I mean, it doesn't seem that anybody can actually be racist. I mean, didn't David Duke, isn't he the head of the KKK? Didn't he also declare that he is not racist?
Yeah, well, they call themselves white separatists instead of white supremacists.
Yeah. Two things. I have to hear the end of Matt's thought, and two, Aron is defying gravity and therefore is summoning some sort of satanic energy.
So along with Tracy, yeah. he is also supernatural in some way.
I've just been encouraging, just to be mindful and try to engage in some charitable listening and stop pretending that you can read people's minds and motivations, because you can't. I fake it live on stage better than any of the people in the community are actually going to be able to do it. And this thing about charitable listening, oh my gosh, as soon as I mention it, somebody out there goes, oh, well, you just want to... No, I'm not saying bend over backwards. I'm not saying, throw the baby out.
An apologist for the worst ideas.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that it's possible to have the best intentions and a single point of confusion sends you off down a trail that is perceived by others as, oh my God, this is, you're part of the worst. And if you actually care, if you actually want to change people's minds, I'm not saying just keep giving them, oh, no, oh, they just mean well. I'm not saying to do that. But if you're going to engage with them, you have to take the steps to mirror the thing, make sure that they're talking about the same thing, that what you think they're talking about is what they're talking about, and see if you can find that one thing that's led them off the trail. But I think, the frustration is probably causing the most harm. We've had these conversations over and over and over again. Frustration is what leads to, violence instead of speech. It's the frustration. These white supremacists, white nationalists, white jackasses who've had to, quietly be racist for a few years are feeling emboldened. And what you're seeing is the result of frustration. They've managed to convince themselves, oh, we're actually the second-class citizens. Well, your ideology is not just second class. It's like 29,000th class, because it's, gross and awful. But that's not the same as your position in society. You're still benefiting from just, mountains of privilege compared to the people that you think are oppressing you. It's like when the Christians claim, oh, stop oppressing us, you're taking away our rights to worship. If you're beating somebody over the head with a stick and I take the stick away, I'm not oppressing you. I'm protecting the person.
Right.
Yeah, I've actually talked to believers who've said exactly that they are oppressed by being disallowed from oppressing other people.
Yep.
As is, they think they're right.
I think some of that's just theological self-gratification. I mean, they're commanded as good Christians to be persecuted in Jesus' name. So if your life's too easy and you're not persecuted, well, you must not be doing Christianity right. So then you must invent or manufacture persecution so that you can then be a good follower of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they seem to overlook the fact that if somebody says you're an asshole, they might be persecuting you unjustly, or you might be an asshole, and it's up to you to dig in a little and figure out which one you are.
That actually speaks to a point that I was just about to bring up, because talking about charitable listening, that's honestly something that I've been trying to work on. When I read something and my instinct is to be set off by it, I think to myself, like, okay, intent matters, but intent is not the end-all, be-all of the story, right? Because you can have the best of intentions and still do harm. So you want to read something charitably, but I think the other thing, the side of the conversation that doesn't often happen is that when someone responds, and oftentimes it doesn't matter how well-reasoned it is. You can be totally calm, totally non-confrontational, and just say, hey, that was kind of problematic, and here's why, and this thing that you said or this thing that you did made me feel this way because of this. There's not the charitable listening on the other side of the conversation, oftentimes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes what it becomes is, hey, man, that was kind of a messed up thing, and immediately it's, I'm a good ally. I'm the best ally ever. You should know this. You should know that I'm a perfect ally and that I'm good, and that you should know that that's not really what I mean. And it's just like so many people who seem to communicate for a living seem to be doing such a bad job, because so many people are misinterpreting their words over and over and over again. And a lot of times there doesn't seem to be that conversation on the other side. I think is often the problem that I see as well, because I've really tried really hard to be that person, because even though I'm trans and our community is under pretty hardcore assault at the moment, otherwise, I'm a relatively privileged person myself. I mean, I have a middle-class job. I have a decent place to live. I never have to worry about food. I can make my car payment, that kind of stuff. And that puts me in a pretty safe spot. there's a bit of privilege in this for me too. So I feel like I'm often in a position where I can be the one who calmly responds, because a lot of these conversations, sometimes I don't necessarily have some skin in the game. So I feel like a lot of times that might be my place in the movement, is to be that person who can engage those conversations, and it's not going to set me off completely because we're not necessarily talking about me in the conversation. And
yeah,
so
that's why I end up being the go-between diplomat trying to make peace on it.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to get to a point where you realize either I'm not the one to actually do this, or the people that I'm trying to engage with, they're not going to listen to me, or they're not ready to listen to anybody, or whatever else. It is, you do your best, and then you try to make sure that if you're not being effective, that you stop. If I started getting, a mountain of emails that I was monumentally wrong about a particular issue, even if I was firmly convinced that I wasn't, I would stop and spend some time investigating and reevaluate that. If for no other reason than to find a way to explain to the people who think I'm wrong why I'm not convinced, but better yet, to possibly change my mind, because people are so terrified of being exposed as being wrong, and really that should be, for me, it's like a joyous thing, because now I have the opportunity to stop being wrong, right, which would be great.
Yeah, I had that conversation with a friend of mine once, because I used to be one of those people on Facebook that was like, I was always screaming about everything. I was always like super, like just super hardcore and super aggressive. And I was kind of in that bubble where I was thinking more about what makes me feel good than what's actually effective. And I didn't realize that at the time. But I had a friend actually come to me, and he was like, listen, the Callie that I see on Facebook and the Callie that I know in person are not the same person. And he's like, you got to think about what your purpose is. Is your purpose to express your opinion so people know where you stand? If that's your goal, then okay. But if your goal is to change people's thinking and to actually inspire people to do better, then that might be a thing to rethink. And he's like, I don't own you. I don't have any authority over you or anything like that. But he's like, it's just, I'm your friend, and I love you, and I love what you're trying to do. I just don't see that's being effective in your goals. And that really caused some introspection on my part. And I think all of us should be at least willing, like you said, to reflect on that. We might come out saying like, nope, I'm good. What I'm doing is fine. But I think there's a lot of people on a lot of sides of issues, a lack of want to self-reflect because we are so sure of ourselves. And
well, I can say that that's not my problem. I can honestly say that when I catch shit that I may be an asshole, the first thing that I have to consider, given any counter argument to my position, is how accurate is that person's criticism? Is there any truth to what they're saying at all? And am I, in fact, an asshole?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And my lovely wife spun around with a beautiful, brilliant smile and said, yes.
Yeah,
I will concede. It has happened a time or two. And it's funny that last night we were doing some kind of a group online thing where they opened up the question by having everybody express the last time that they were proven to be wrong, where they had to openly admit and concede. And I gave an example of a very heated argument that went on for over a month between me and this other guy, and it was something that was when I finally broke away from that argument, and it was about a month later, simmering in my head before I finally had to concede that, God damn it, that asshole was right.
Am I the asshole?
No, sir, you are not. Okay. Now, you and I have had conflicts before, and I have never, I've never viewed you as an asshole.
Oh, so, well, I got to fix that.
Matt, you are not doing your job, my friend.
Yeah. Now Matt's given the different opinions than mine, and on occasion I've had to concede that he was right, but I wouldn't put him in the same. And this is not all the time, because I still have my own opinions, regardless whether they conflict with his. But this was another matter. This was more or less. This was the argument over whether humans are monkeys. Oddly enough,
okay.
I was arguing with somebody who is on the spectrum, who has like little or no interpersonal skills, and so his ability to convince me was strictly based on the facts and not by his charisma at all, because he lacked all of that. And so that just made it even harder for me to have to confess that that you were right, But as I said, it took me a while just to stew about it. I had been taught a certain way. I believed the way that I had been taught my entire life. And here's this other guy throwing a monkey wrench in to tell me I was wrong about everything. And so is everybody that ever taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think there is a place for the more angry stuff because, Aron, I remember at the Ark Encounter protest over a year ago when, Hovend and all his guys showed up. And
those videos were glorious.
Oh my god! And you said something like, humans are apes, and the guy looked around at your butt like trying to look for a tail, and your response was, "Apes don't have tails. Learn taxonomy." And that was just one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. So there is a place for that kind of stuff. I do have to say. I
just heard that in Aron's voice, by the way. I can hear him saying those words to somebody else.
And it's so perfect. I think I still have video of it somewhere. But
I like the part where somebody literally said the words, "You just got checkmated."
I'm actually touring the Ark Encounter on Friday. I'm going up for the Kentucky Free Thought Convention. And so the Free Thought group there, we're all doing like this big sort of heathen tour through the facility. And I'm already shoring up my own sanity as best I can for what I'm about to encounter, if you'll pardon the expression.
I'm actually hoping Ken tries to throw us out.
Is he going to be there?
I don't know, but I think it'd be funny.
Wait, the place is still open?
He's probably more like... No, I did a video but I think he's probably more likely to recognize you guys than me. But
he
I
recognized me. It was a beautiful moment. Their Answers in Genesis group released that little movie where Ken Ham is walking through the Ark with Bill Nye. Mm-hmm. And I think it's right at 58 minutes into that video. You see Ken Ham turn and look to his left, and he has a look of shock on his face because he realized I'm walking right next to him. And I know he recognized me, and he couldn't say anything to me because he's talking to Ken Ham, and he has all these movie cameras around. But he had just told his congregation that they needed to pray for me the day before.
Oh, that's sweet. Oh. See, they care about you.
Should they sacrifice a goat or a chicken too? I mean,
no, that's Old Testament stuff. They don't.
Bless Aron's heart. Bless his heart.
Yes. When the three of us were in Australia, and this whole thing started. Seth and I were on an airplane. And he's just like, "Hey, what do you think about this Unholy Trinity thing that we did?" And I was like, "Cool, I'm in because I'll do anything." But there was
we learned something about Matt on this broadcast.
Dillahunty.
Yeah. So there was a day in Australia that was is really telling because for the longest time there was a lot of discussion in the community about whether we should be firebrands or diplomats. And my position is you be whatever is the most effective in the situation that you're in. I can do the firebrand thing. I can do the diplomat thing. I try to tailor stuff to the audience and try to never do it in such a way that somebody would claim I was being disingenuous or two-faced because I care, but I also am passionate. Mm-hmm. And Seth is he's the same. I mean, so I've known him for years, and he's absolutely one of my best friends. What you see is what you get, and he's Seth. And I can be a number of different things, but we're in Australia. And Aron is on one street corner where there's a street preacher with a megaphone who doesn't stand a chance because Aron, without a megaphone, can just shout,
right.
Hey, what he's saying is bullshit, just almost as loud as a megaphone. And I'm on the other street corner with another group of Christians, and I'm having little miniature debates and just going at it. And Seth, I think I remember him having a camera in his hand, but for the first time ever, it's like he didn't know what to shoot because there's chaos and order and who's here and what's there. Right. It was like so overwhelming, and it was a fun day.
That's awesome. Well, we are out of time, friends. Seth, Matt, Aron, I want to thank you so much. This was a really cool conversation. I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate you guys helping out. If you wouldn't mind, in the couple of minutes left in the hour, if you wouldn't mind just shooting the links out on your social media, it's fbbgive.org to help Foundation Beyond Belief out with their humanist disaster recovery. And we're going to take a quick break. We will be back in about 10 minutes.
Yay!
Yay, thanks.
And that, my friends, is going to do it for part 1 of the Gaytheist Manifesto's Foundation Beyond Belief Fund Drive. Thank you so much to everybody who came on to help with this at such last-minute notice. I love every single one of you. One more time, if you haven't given yet, please check out fbbgive.org and give what you can to help the amazing folks at Foundation Beyond Belief do their thing. You can find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaytheistmanifesto. You can email us at thegaytheistmanifesto@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at GaytheistCali. You can find the show on Twitter at The Gaytheists, and you'll have Ari's outro next week. Sorry. Love you, Ari. If you want to support the show and the activism we do, you can head to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto and make a per-episode donation as little as $1 per episode. You can also head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. That's also super, super helpful. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Say I need to hear the truth.